Hello, my name's Dr. Kim Shahabudin and I'm a WEA tutor. I've been teaching students how to improve their writing for almost 15 years. In this tutorial, I'm going to talk about structuring your writing. So what kinds of writing do you regularly do? Emails, perhaps job application letters, statements on forms, letters of complaint. If you're studying, you might write essays, reports, even a dissertation. Or perhaps you publish your writing, a blog post, a web page, or a newsletter article. Whatever it is you write, you will want it to work well, to communicate your ideas, concerns, and messages to your reader, whoever that may be. But we've all got to the end of reading something and thought, what were they trying to get at here? Often the problem is that the writing is badly structured. The main message is hidden away in a mass of details, not all of them relevant or introduced in the right place. Understanding how to structure your writing can make sure you get your point across effectively. And that can really count when it's something like a job application. So let's have a look at how this works in practice. Here's a short paragraph from a cover letter to go with a job application. If you want to read this in more detail or at any other time during the video, you can pause it. The problem with this is that it's not obvious what the writer is getting at, so the reader has to do a lot of work in trying to work it out. We can do more work for the reader by looking at each bit of information separately to see what job it does. It'll be more obvious if we put each sentence on a new line. You can do this with your own writing if you want to get a clearer idea of how it's working. The first sentence here is an example. It works as evidence to illustrate or strengthen a point. But by putting it first, we don't know what point it's there to illustrate. So it loses some of its force. Where's the point of this paragraph? Oh, it's down here. That's a lot of reading to go through before we know what the writer wants us to hear. So what happens if we move these sentences around a bit so that the point is at the beginning and then the evidence is used to prove it? Then there are these sentences that explain a bit more about how the evidence works to strengthen the point. Well, now that already looks better, but it's still feeling a bit unfinished. What it needs is something to bring it back to the point, something that shows why that point was worth making in the first place, so that the person reading it ends up nodding in agreement. In an essay, this might be called a critical conclusion, but here I'm going to call it rounding off. So here's the rewritten paragraph with its new structure. It needed a little bit of tweaking to make it flow, but it's looking a lot better now than the original, much more powerful, more likely to make that impact that you want. A good way to remember this structure is by using an acronym. An acronym takes the first letter of each word to make a new word, which you can use to help you remember a formula or a process. In this case, it's PEER: point, evidence, explain, round off. You might remember it as peering at your writing or looking more closely at it. By using an easy to remember formula, you'll have the tools to check your writing anytime. And so far, I've talked about structuring a paragraph, but you can map the same structure onto a much longer piece of writing. So for instance, let's imagine you were writing an article for a local history newsletter. You would need to write an introduction to start with. This would tell the reader what the point of the article was, what it's about, why the topic's interesting, and how you're going to discuss it. Again, remember that if you want to read this through in more detail, you can pause the video. After your introduction, you would follow that with the main body of your article, which will be made up of paragraphs which provide the evidence and explanation to support what you wanted to say about the topic. Here's an example paragraph. Each paragraph would use the same structure that we've already discussed. You start with the point that you want to make, give the evidence to illustrate that point, explain how it works, and round it off by linking the point back to your overall topic. Have a read through this paragraph to see how it works. Then finally, you would round the whole article off by drawing out some conclusions about the topic. These would look back at the points you'd made in your paragraph and how they told you something about your overall topic. So there's the peer structure in action again. In two places this time. First of all, we're thinking about it at the article level, but then we're also thinking about it at the smaller paragraph level. You can map that same structure onto all sorts of writing, however long, academic, administrative, or more personal pieces of writing. Just remember, when you're writing, to peer more closely at how it works and magnify the impact of your communications.